are listening to Shameless Stories, and I'm Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, soul-led publishing company for magical women writing world-changing books. And we are delighted to be the sponsor of this podcast. So enjoy, magical one.
Amazing. So welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories. I am absolutely delighted to invite my next special guest on. I have Tanith Carey, you've got a lovely title. You're a journalist, you're an author, you're a Gestalt counsellor. We've just been chatting, like full disclosure, we've just been having a really good chat for about an hour. So I'm hoping we've saved some of the best bits for you guys. But thank you for coming on today, Tanith.
I'm absolutely so delighted to be here with you, Sarah.
So am I. Anything goes, and you can swear if you want to. So Tanith and I, obviously, Tanith is a journalist, I'm a PR. PRs and journalists go together. We help our clients amplify our stories or their stories. And I can't remember how long ago we met. I think I might have messaged you because I bought one of your parenting books because I think that's why, because I don't know, I made no mistake that I had an awakening when my girls were born and I just wanted to do things differently. So I did what all parents do and bought all of the parenting books. And I especially love, I've got about 4 or 5 of yours, full disclosure. I especially love going back to them all the time to refer back when new stuff crops up, because, you know, when you're a parent, you don't get given a manual, right? And we're here to talk about shame. And one of the things that came up for me as a mum is shame around not knowing enough. And that's why I went mad and bought all the books. So it's not really about me today, it's about you. So Tanith, tell me a little bit about your journey with shame and your thoughts around shame. And I'm sure that there's lots that we can explore, but what's coming to mind first?
What's coming to mind first is how much I've learned about shame in the last few years and how important it is, and how it can cause so many issues, because it's the thing about shame, it's very clever, is that it's internalized in us usually by caregivers in our childhood, and it's become so internalized it's almost sort of locked in our nervous system. So it can come up very, very quickly without us even realizing what's happening. And also, shame keeps us locked in shame because it can cause very defensive reactions, because often when we feel shame, all we want to do is to stop it. So we push it away, or we become defensive. We don't want to listen to it. It makes us feel that not just one part of us has done something wrong, but we are wrong as human beings. So it can have a very, very corrosive effect on lives and relationships and happiness, and really block the emergence of kind of more of a full range of feelings. And really, I think most importantly, it can block you, until you remove the block, from being the authentic person that you are always meant to be. Yeah. So that's why I feel really strongly about it, about naming it and looking at its power over us and what we can do to mitigate that and dial down its power over us.
And so, I mean, shame, we were talking just off camera and about the work that you do as a journalist, because you're now shifting from, well, you're still a journalist, but you're kind of shifting into kind of coaching and counselling. And we were talking about old school journalism, old school PR, and how we're often working at a really kind of simplistic level when we first start out in our careers. And that, you know, that I guess there's a feeling around, I know I'm feeling this in the PR industry as well. It's like, I want to go deeper. I want to be more in integrity. And you described a story a little bit about some, you did some pieces for some well-known newspapers around your topic. I mean, let's talk about that little story that you just shared with me off camera.
Was that the
Like,
pieces that I wrote?
yeah, that was the parenting pieces. I think what I'd love to talk about is some of the instances where, because a lot of people that are listening to this
Hmm.
probably think about journalists as being these awful people that just have no integrity and just write anything.
Yeah.
And like, how does that feel like as a journalist? I don't know why I did that, but like,
Well, I would say, I mean, it very much depends at where you are in your career. So if you're just starting out in journalism, you're much more likely to be buffeted by the editors above you and try and just give them what they want at whatever cost. So, I mean, when you have a bit more power or a reputation you can say, no, I'm not going to have my words changed in that way. So it kind of depends
yeah,
when you're dealing with journalists at what level they are. The other thing to think about journalists is like, as you say, we're all people. We'll have some journalists will be more evolved. Sorry, does that sound a bit simplistic? More emotionally intelligent or evolved or more aware of their own process than others. Some may be having some unchecked biases, which they're going to bring to their work. So yeah, I think it's a question of knowing the kind of journalist that you're dealing with and the kind of publication that you're dealing with, and kind of keeping some control. I mean, luckily, what I have seen is that when I was a journalist, like newspapers and magazines had a lot of power. And they would kind of ride pretty much roughshod through people's lives. Now there has been a massive shift now. Like magazines and newspapers know that they have to be a lot more sensitive because there's more understanding of mental health and less kind of bullying almost. I think that has changed. So that's good. So I think that as people who are contributing to the press are in a slightly safer place. But it does help to kind of keep your parameters and check that that what the headline's going to be, that it's not going to be taken out of context. And, I mean, like, I'm a very collaborative journalist. So if I'm working with someone, like I say, I know the huge responsibility I have in telling your story. Every word is carefully chosen. It's collaborative. I would read it back with you because it's your story,
yeah,
it's not mine. And it's really important that when it's put out into the world that it's correct. So yeah, I mean, I know it sounds a bit simplistic, but it does help to kind of choose your journalist, I would say. Choose your.
100%. I mean, I would attest to that because you know there are journalists out there that don't behave like that.
Right.
And with AI and all of that, I mean, there is probably a tendency to hand all our power over to the tech to give us the answers. Whereas I think certainly some of the female journalists like yourself that I've worked with, they're still in that research integrity, wanting to share people's stories in a way that
Mm,
is in alignment and from a place of power, right? But
absolutely.
so I'm loving that you've shared that because I think there will be a few people that will be interested to hear another
Mhm.
perspective on journalists because it's all very well me saying that, but when
Yeah.
yeah,
And one thing I would say
and
about from a people, I don't know, this is helpful. Like, because of the shift to AI, what journalism does want more of is authentic stories, which cannot be created by AI with a name and a picture and a real life behind it. Because there's so much AI now, they do want authenticity. So that is a kind of something to move into. Like the first person stuff it's always been big, but it's just getting even bigger because it's not a bot, it's a person with a story.
yeah, and I think people, I guess that over the last few years, we want to become more emotionally connected through the power of storytelling, which is why we both do what we do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in there is the shame piece, right? So, everybody has shame in their stories, it would appear.
And this is
So,
what I discovered, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I want to just like dive a little bit into your recent book, and I can never pronounce it.
Which one? The Anhedonia book?
There you go, Anadonia.
Yes.
That's the one. So I would we talked very briefly about why. I mean, what would be great to understand is why you wrote your parenting books and why you wrote that particular book, like that part of your journey. I mean, I love to know what the driver is behind people's sliding door moments, if you like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I always say with my books, because I've written 14, I write about what I need to learn. So that has helped me a lot. My books have been very important in my personal development. The reason I wrote my parenting books is because I had a very, very chaotic childhood.
Yeah.
And I was born into a a couple who had a lot of ancestral trauma. I think my father probably had ADHD. That's not the issue, but like probably some sort of personality disorder. He had trauma from his own father. My mother's father had committed suicide when she was 19. He was a racehorse. He was a jockey and a racehorse owner, and he'd lost all his money and killed himself. And then her brother later killed himself. So I was born in the middle of these very troubled young people, and who were very much concerned with their own survival, their own psychological needs. And what I learned out of that was that I was valued if I was the clever little girl who did well at school. So when I was a child, my father would I think he'd refer to me as his project. Like I could recite all the Greek myths, I could recite loads of poems. Like if we went for a walk, it was a constant kind of quiz. Do you know what I mean? And for a while I was like, oh, I felt good about that. But it's only now that I realized that that was all I was valued for. And that led in a way to the Anhedonia book, because I then kind of overheated on that. So I became a workaholic who had no sense of who I was if I wasn't achieving. And so that has been my learning, as a Gestalt psychotherapist in training, who's had to have a lot of very deep personal therapy, and this is still emerging for me. And going back to the
Yeah.
thing, because I'd had this I was the child of this very high conflict family, and they had a very, very acrimonious divorce, literally chaos. There was no one there to support me whatsoever. So, like, as I said to you earlier, children can survive traumas if they have an attuned caregiver or adult who's there to support them. I didn't have that. I was completely alone. So my father went off to Australia to live with his mistress. My mother then remarried. Then we moved to New York. I knew no one. I was thrown into this New York school, um, and I had no one at all. And I was sent back to boarding school, and then I was considered a bit strange because I'd been taken out of the system. And there was just no one there for me, So I learned to become very, very independent, sort of avoidant attachment. Oh, I'll look after myself. But I knew that the way I could feel better was to work hard and win the school prizes and do well in my career and get the bylines. But ultimately, I've been a journalist now for 36 years. I realized that it didn't matter how many bylines I got, how many spreads I had in the Times or how many features I had in the Guardian or whatever. It just was never enough for me. And so that's when I realized, and I was writing all these, I was writing about parenting, and I kind of really, really felt that I really needed to kind of get some therapeutic underpinning. So that's when I decided to also train as a Gestalt psychotherapist. So that's where I am now. And it's just like my process of learning is just accelerated so much. And I really do feel like
Oh,
I'm on the way to becoming the authentic person I was meant to be, because that is what Gestalt's all about. It's this idea that we were born whole, but things like shame and introjects or kind of shoulds and woulds get in the way. And Gestalt is about recognizing those, naming them, and then letting the whole being become that. Does that help?
I love that. I mean, the fact that you've taken such a journey to get to where you are now, and I mean that's what we were talking about before we came on was like dealing with the shame, like you describing a time of your life where you realized that you were still holding shame from that time of your life, and
Mhm.
that felt quite powerful. I mean,
Really powerful, yeah. Really.
and
And
that
it, yeah, sorry, go on.
no, and I mean, and also, I can completely appreciate that. I mean, we've had lots of people on the podcast that have also spoken into this being measured for what you could do So whether you were getting bylines, whether you were winning awards, whatever, it's like there's a generation of people that have been measured in that way, and they're now kind of breaking it all down and trying to rebuild it for their children, should I
Yeah,
say.
absolutely.
And that's where your amazing books come in, because seriously, I keep going back to them over and over again. Because
I can't tell you how much that means to me, Sarah, because like, to me, sometimes in my shame-based process, it was all about how much they'd sold or what the Amazon ranking was, and like waking up and checking, it's like, oh, it's only got that. But actually to hear that they're alive and in your home and helping you, it just means such a lot to me. I can't tell you because this is part of my process. It's not just what's on the paper. It's like what I am outside of those achievements. Like what do I bring? What value do I bring to the world? What is my other finding worth from other things that can't be measured? And that is my, at the age of 58, this is what I'm still working on. So
I
that,
think we're always going to be working on it, unfortunately. But I do like we were saying, it's like wanting to know that the future generations are
yeah,
not going to go through some of the things that, like, sounds. Thank you for sharing your personal story with me, because I do appreciate that. That was a lot to deal with as a child, and if you're in the process of unraveling all of that, then
mhm.
that's going to be, yeah, powerful for you and your family.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's really good to sort of like make it sort of to tell you about it actually, because this is a realization I've only had fairly recently. That it's time to do other stuff, and what's my worth as as a person outside of those very quantifiable things.
yeah, and I guess that's another thing is like I mean, I could bring back the shame piece to me. Like, I just want to get to know you because you're a journalist? Probably yes. I'm going to own that. But I'm so glad we've been speaking, because I absolutely love spending time with you and learning more and more about your process. And I think that's what I love about this podcast, is that it's about connecting each other at, not just on the surface level, not for what you can give me and what I can give you. It's actually, there's so much more to that connection piece. And like, with going back to your comment around the books and having them in my home, well, that's your legacy, because there will be my kids will have seen your book in my bookshelf because it's out and it's there, and I often pick it up when they're doing my head in. It's like, what would Tanith say?
Such a lot.
But what I love about I mean, your journey with the parenting books is that you have covered every single aspect of the journey. So, any new parents, any grandparents that need insight, you've got it covered. And it's not like, I was given a book from somebody when my babies came along. It was the Gina Ford one.
Oh my God, talk about shame. Whoa.
I was given the Gina Ford one, and I was also given another one that basically, and this is why my daughter is so regimented now, because, from a newborn, I was like, right, bed, bath, just like constant scheduling. And it was
Yeah.
exhausting. And then the second one came along, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. My thoughts on Gina Ford are very multiple. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, and I just want to say
Yeah.
I'm so excited, and I really want you to feel my energy. And this isn't bullshit. Like, so out of the "What's My Child Thinking" book, so we've got "What's My Child Thinking," "What's My Teenager Thinking," "What's My Teenager Thinking." But I'm so excited. "What's My Baby Thinking" is coming out in November, and if there is a book that I have written that
Yeah.
truly going to make a difference, is this one. I just cannot like it. Just if we can just attune to our babies really early on, we could just head off a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
what's exciting about like what's my child thinking series is they sell all over the world, right? So they sell in places where there is still a lot of authoritarian and shaming parenting. So places like Russia and China and all those kind of things. And then to be able to bring a book which is in a really easy to translate format and in a really easy to use format in real life scenarios, so that to show parents a different way of being that doesn't resort to just very easy, because it's very easy to shame children because we're all powerful and they don't have any power, and it kind of comes out of our mouths like, if you do this, then this is wrong, this is right. It's so easy to do, but like, what I've learned as a Gestalt therapist is that, the effects of that shaming in childhood are lifelong, and affect they leak into all our relationships, including our adult relationships and our sense of ourselves. So if I do anything, if I can just help people to see there's other alternatives to getting kids to kind of, I don't know, do what they want to do, but do what they need to do, but shame, that will also be an important legacy for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I posted about this on social media the other day. Like, I'm writing a book about shame. I have a podcast that talks about shame, and here
Mm.
I am shaming my kids.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like, but I guess the difference is the noticing of that shame, and then the repairing of the apology, which my kids must get really bored of me because I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, and trying to do better the next time. But it's like that never happened when we were growing up, because
No.
that was never taught, right? They did, and our parents did the best they could with what they had, and it's just an evolution on
Mm.
communication, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we know so much more now. I mean, just the work of kind of Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate and all these people, we can really understand what trauma and shame and Brené Brown and, whatever challenges our children have, they have these resources which we can pass on to them.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
it's a generation that, because as you say, we are standing up to a lot of ancestral trauma, which has only really been recognized fairly recently, that we're not passing it on to them. So, we're working really hard for for our future generations. And it's
And
hard
I
work.
think that's,
Work.
yeah, that's the thing, that you're leaving a legacy of these amazing books. Um, and
We do-
and I'm learning, I'm
Also,
learning new.
Sarah, let's just name it. You are such a unique PR. I just want to say this to anybody who you're working with. You are so lucky to have Sarah on your side because she is such an evolved person. And I don't know anybody else like her. And I have never met anybody else like her in the PR world. And wow, how many years is it? 36 years I've been a journalist. So
Thank you. That's really kind. Oh,
fine, it's
but
true.
yeah. Oh no, I really thank you. I really appreciate that, and I'm going to take that. And I do want to like just circle tiny bit back to the Meh book, because I remember talking to you about that at the time, and like so, we've just had an episode air probably a few weeks ago now with Kat Googe, the Joy Queen. So about laughter and bringing in. So let's talk about that a little bit, because you know the laughter piece, the joy piece, and I mean we were talking about current affairs as well just before we came on. We're not going to go into that too much, but obviously the state of the world outside this kind of room, like, and the book that you've just written about being met and feeling numb and feeling joyless. I
Yeah.
suspect there's lots of people listening that will have felt that at some point. And, could you dive into that a little bit for me about like where it came from and
That's
all of that?
so interesting actually, because that also relates to shame. So basically, because just circling back to my workaholism, then I kind of had a burnout period in which I just went through anhedonia. So anhedonia is the loss of feeling joy, motivation, things that you used to love. You just physically cannot feel the joy flowing through you. So you emotionally flatline. And the thing I wanted to, and anhedonia is well known as a symptom of depression in the psychiatric circles, but it's also applicable to people who are fully functioning out in the world who aren't depressed. And I really wanted to bring it into the mainstream mental health conversation because people feel an incredible amount of shame about admitting that they've got anhedonia, because it feels like a first world problem. Like, oh, if you've got a roof, you've got a nice house, you've got a job, it feels really shameful to admit that you can't feel joy. And it
Yeah.
was kind of shameful for me to admit it, actually, and to help people name it. And because until we name it, we can't tame it. And my point in the book is that we do, in these really difficult times, we do need people flourishing, able to feel joy, instead of languishing and folding our cards, because we have to be in a good place to kind of keep ourselves, in a place where we can still realize our potential and our authenticity. So that's why I am proud of like naming anhedonia like in the mainstream, because it is the first book to join the dots on that, and just helping people kind of say, oh, okay, it's not just me. I'm not just a miserable old cow. There's lots of different reasons I could have developed anhedonia. For example, it becomes very figural in menopause because of the drop of estrogen, which has an effect on dopamine. It can be related to childhood trauma. It can be related to workaholism and burnout. It can be related to diet. So yes, absolutely. And just to kind of break free of that thing of like, oh, I mustn't admit this. I mustn't admit this to my family and my children and my partner. I can say that I have anhedonia, and I now understand it, and I now feel I'm empowered to do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess like anhedonia is an actual diagnosed condition. That's
Yeah,
correct, isn't
absolutely.
it?
Yeah, there's mountains of research on it, and like, I write about in the book like the reason I realized I kind of it first became of more obvious to me on a couple of occasions. I just very quickly, like, I had a phone call from my agent who gave me some really good news about a book deal. And I remember being on the phone and going, oh, that's great. That's brilliant. Yeah, great, great, great. Like making all the right noises, but noticing that in my body, I couldn't feel any joy. I just couldn't feel any joy. So I started going in search of what this was, and it was bothering me. And I noticed it at other times when things were going well. And like even at Christmas, which I loved, I couldn't feel any kind of in my nervous system. And then one night I felt really guilty. My husband was sleeping next to me. I was, Googling in the dark, and I guiltily, shamefully kind of Googled, like, why can't I feel any joy? What is this? And after a bit of searching, up pops this word anhedonia. And I'm like, what? Even the way it sounds, you can hear what it is, what it means. It's like the Greek for without joy. And there was mountains of research on it, mountains.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so much. There is so much on it. I can't tell you. And I was like, oh my gosh, why does no one know about this gray area? I just felt compelled to kind of join the dots on it and bring it into the mainstream. And that was like a real drive to kind of do something about it. So I think that it's
That
a
resonates.
lot.
Yeah, it resonates so much with, I mean, certainly like moving through perimenopause, like 2 years ago, I felt like like vanilla. I call it vanilla, like flat lines, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
flat.
yeah.
Yes,
You kind of just, yeah, it just,
sort of
and
sleep. Mm.
yeah, I didn't sleep. There was just no, I mean, yeah, there was just like no, I mean, I remember I liken it to, so I went on antidepressants around after Lucy was born, and then through Amy's pregnancy. And the other side of it, I just felt, meh, it's a baby. It's kind of, and that's when I realized I was actually a little bit ill because, I should have, like the shoulds again. It's
Yeah, they
that,
should. Yeah.
like, I should have felt more happy, but it's
Yeah.
like, I was delighted somewhere inside me. I like was so happy that I had a healthy baby and all of the things. And but there's this feeling, and I had that feeling then, and I got it like about a year ago, and I felt the burnout, the flatlining, like you
Yeah.
said, and then a big thing happened in my family, and then it made me realize that actually there's more to life.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Well, I mean,
And
stress is also a big, like, if you're under a lot of stress, that can, because basically the human body, the human brain is trained to take much more notice of threat than joy. And also cortisol, once it's raised, takes a lot longer to dissipate in the body as a survival. So if you have if your cortisol just keeps rising and rising and rising without a break, then that will interrupt the smooth working of your brain's reward system.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would all, and also with the hormones, as you pointed out, it's like kind of once the estrogen goes down, estrogen also stops. Estrogen also buffers cortisol.
Right.
So that when estrogen goes down, we feel the cortisol more. So that's why sometimes in perimenopause and menopause, we suddenly get really stressed by things that never used to stress us anymore. Like I remember feeling it like I in my 20s, I was a ridiculously like confident driver. I was a bit of a maniac actually, but yeah. But like I realized that something different was happening to me when I suddenly became nervous about going on a motorway. And that was cortisol no longer being was being more exposed than it had been. So it's just when we understand what's happening to us, then we feel more forgiving of ourselves, and then we have an explanation, and then the shame dissipates.
100%. Yeah, because now you've voiced something that happened to me. I bought a camper van, and I was sat in the van in this car park, and I just couldn't for the life of me figure out how to reverse it.
Yeah.
And like, like you, I used to belt up the motorway at 1 o'clock in the morning, and like, I was a hooligan. And then there's me sitting in this little village car park going,
Yeah,
it's just like, what the hell is this? This isn't me. It's
exactly.
like, yeah. That's reassuring to know
Clear
I'm
one,
not
that
the
one,
only.
isn't it? Driving one. It's such a clear one because it's like, what? That's something what's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is like, I mean, God, yeah, it just no one tells you that that happens, right? That you forget how to drive, or you just
Yeah.
lose confidence.
Absolutely. Well, anhedonia is a very unnamed symptom of menopause. We really need to know about it more
Yeah,
because otherwise we're going to think,
100%.
oh, I'm just being a miserable, useless cow, or, and we just turn that shame back on ourselves. And once we can externalize it, give it a name and a shape and a reason, then it's no longer in us. We can put it out there and deal with it, because otherwise it just goes around in a sort of toxic kind of, oh, it's all my fault, self blame. I should be feeling good. I shouldn't be complaining. I've got nothing to moan about. So yeah.
Go and get the book now. I will be. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you all day. You know
Big.
this. We
Yeah.
probably will carry on. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today, and sharing your shameless story. Is there
Mm.
anything else you'd like to leave behind with the listeners before we say goodbye?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Like you say, like when you start noticing those shoulds and woulds, that's a little something to listen out for. So, to extricate that shame from your internal process and your inner critic. And then also to think about the inner critic, like we think of like the inner critic keeps us in shame. But one thing I've learned through Gestalt is that the inner critic was originally there to protect you, and to protect you from feeling left out in your family, or like your parents didn't love you, and just to kind of to maybe change our relationship with the inner critic and just say, okay, I understand that you have evolved to look after me and to protect me, and you did your job, and I really thank you. But I am here now. My adult self is here now to look after myself, and I know a lot more, and I'm here, and you're safe. So that's the one thing that I'm working on, and that's why just one thing I would just say, like, it's not the inner critic. We think it's as a harsh thing, but actually, it's tried to help us, and we can say thank you.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so true. Oh, so where can people find you?
They can find me on my Instagram, which is Tanith Carey Therapy. I'm also on Twitter, but yeah, and also I'm on Blue Sky and Threads. So I like to post a lot of like real nuggets. I love to clarify. and I love to visualize ideas that I find exciting in anhedonia and the understanding of the brain's reward system, and also our understanding of how joy is made in our brains, which strangely not many people seem to know about. This is really bizarre. Like, we all want to be happy, but no one actually knows how joy and happiness is made in the brain. So if there's another reason to go to Feeling Blah, it's the fact that I spoke to the world's probably top neuroscientist on the creation of joy in the brain about how joy is made in the brain. Because once we know, we can harness it. So yeah.
That's
So
exactly it.
Tanith Carey therapy, is good on Instagram. Please join me there.
Very exciting. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I will include all of like the links to books and show notes and all of that good stuff. If you have any questions or comments, you want to get in touch with Tanith, to reach out. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us on this week's Shameless Stories.
Thank you.